Hello and welcome back, everybody. It is another reaction episode for Loot, Lore, and Lights. We are talking about episode 2 from season 2, The Last of Us, just aired tonight from HBO. I need to know, are you okay? Tonight was a heavy episode. There was a lot of stuff that happened. It is something that people who played the game have known about and knew it was coming. And, well, I guess to start it off, thinking back, whenever the episode began, I kind of had a feeling where this was going. Because realistically, in the game, you're probably only about 2 hours in whenever you get to the part where, well, we'll get to that as we finish going over the episode. Right when it kicked off, my first thought was when they were in the ski lodge talking, is Abby going clubbing tonight? And lo and behold, she did. So when it opened up, it had Abby in the hospital. She was already finding that her father had been killed. And it let you know that that was her dad, that was the doctor who was responsible for trying to do the surgery on Ellie that would hopefully lead to a cure. This is something that varies differently in the game by hours, many, many hours. You actually don't find out Abby's backstory until much later into the game. So when you get to the point where Abby has her final interaction with Joel, it hurts to me a lot worse in the game because you don't really understand why. So I did not like how it led off with her in the hospital where she's already finding her father is been killed and who did it. I will say, going straight from there though to the scene with Jesse where Ellie's waking up and they're getting ready to go on patrol. That was pretty spot on for the way it was in the game. Loved hearing the fan service, I guess, for the dialogue that happened where he's giving her hell about kissing Dina and basically saying like, I don't care. Like, I'm past that. While they're walking through the town itself, there was a very interesting little quote that Jesse had said, which was something along the lines of like certainty masquerading as knowledge. And I can't remember what it is. I'm gonna have to go back and listen to it again because I love that quote, and I think that is something that can really be attributed to stuff that goes on today as well. They go and get ready to go on patrol, and you find out that Joel is gone with Dina. That's a little different from the game because in the game, as Jesse's leading them out, you actually end up joining Dina and getting into a snowball fight, and you find out that Joel has already left and he's gone with Tommy. So that was a little bit different. I didn't hate the change with it being Jesse though. It lent a little bit more, I guess, to build the story for how they're going to do the series. But I did like how they kept the scene in there where Seth has to apologize to Ellie. But what I hated about that is they did not, keep the line of, something like, here, you can have the bigot sandwich when she gives it to Jesse. Ellie just seemed a little bit more snarky in the games. And I know that Bella's playing in her own way. And, she's still doing a good job so far. Maybe not in the looks department. And again, this is not something to say she's not fine or she's not sexy or anything like that. This is just to say, like, just from my experiences with Ellie from playing the video game, she does not look the part of Ellie. And I don't know how it's going to play out later on in the game for her to play this storm that Ellie is going to eventually become. Moving on, it switches back to Abby, and you find out that the infected have been burrowing. So they don't know how many there are. Could be tens, could be hundreds, could be thousands. They play it off like it isn't much, but it goes back into the whole like tendril ant hive mind piece where once Abby ended up in the middle of that field with all the infected, it was like she set off this chain reaction that started waking all of them up, and it happened just a parallel of in the city they discovered the tendrils in the sewage pipes that are running out. In the midst of everything going on with the horde, I really thought it was neat to see Tommy grab a flamethrower against a bloater. That is one thing, if you've played the games, that there weakness is fire. So made sense that a flamethrower would kill it. I think it built it up to be this panic moment of, oh my goodness, are they going to take out Tommy? Is something bad going to happen to him? Just for the bloater to, very anticlimactically fall over and die. But, it tracks with the way the game works as far as fire being the biggest weakness for a bloater. Now, bloaters in a game may have been throwing spores at him, but we don't have that in this series. So they just have the super strength, which was kind of neat to see them tie that into breaking through and into Jackson. And you've heard so many stories, I guess, of them preparing for different attacks and having to ward off attacks, whether it be from thievery or bandits or even other infected, that you get to see it in the show where the town's actually having to work together. And their plan worked. They were able to repel this massive horde of infected. It may have been at the cost of more lives than they would have wanted it to be, but that's one of those things where things could have been a lot worse. They were very well prepared. They responded, and everyone did their jobs. So kudos to Jackson on that. It was nice to see them actually fend off an attack. Like I said, you do hear it multiple times in the game itself about how they've had to be defensive, and that's why they have all these patrols going out scouting all the time. The biggest takeaway from that, though, is like not even that Tommy fought the bloater with the flamethrower, but like how did he go about not getting swarmed? Are all of the infected just purposely ignoring the red shirts in this show? Because he was standing in the middle of, I know at least like 20 or 30 ran right past him, just so that way he could use his little pistol to try and agitate the bloater and get his attention. Kind of took you out of the moment, not as immersive. That's the only downside I would say, I guess, to that attack. I did like the other pieces where you saw everybody working together and Tommy using the flamethrower to kill the bloater. Let me see. I guess that really just leads us into the final part of the show where you see Dina have some medicine injected and Abby unveils who she is and tells the group, because they get back to the lodge, who's with her. Pardon me. I'm dealing with a little bit of some allergy issues, which is causing me to have a little bit of a cough. But it was really just looking at that scene, the emotions and everything that played into it, seeing Joel be tortured, took the shotgun to the knee. Similar to the way you do in the game. Joel talked his crap before getting ready to go out, just like he did in the game. Very tough, very strong character. And it was rough to watch, even knowing it was coming. I watched it with my wife, who was bawling the entire time. And she's basically saying like what all the gamers said. She was like, how do I continue with this show knowing that Joel is dead? Like, he is the main character, right? And I know that's the way that I felt when I played through the game. It was a very similar reaction to that part where, man, Joel's gone. What do I do? My friend Gerald, who's been on or is going to be on this week's episode for Monster Hunter, basically quit playing the game shortly after that because he was like, felt like the game wasn't doing what I was hoping for, and he lost interest in the story. But it really creates this massive, really just tempest of a storm for Ellie to become. And there was this piece back when the game came out where Neil Druckmann had said something along the lines of like, there are two different characters in here who are, while different, they're very, very much the same person, very similar on their paths and what they've become. And Abby, in doing what she has done, especially in front of Ellie, is just creating, potentially a much more sinister and violent person that is who she was. Much darker, much sinister. Somebody who will maybe even do what's necessary without the conscience that Abby seems to have about not wanting to hurt anyone but Joel. It is going to be a wild ride from here on out. I'm looking forward to seeing where the season is going to go next. I have an idea of where the ending point's going to be just based on how soon or how soon this has happened and how many episodes are in there. I really think it's going to play out similar-esque, I guess, to the way that the game did, which is kind of nice to see for source material. But it is kind of funny also to hear like some of the people who I've talked to regarding Pedro Pascal who are like, I really just don't know if it's going to make it past another season or two, just because he signed on to do Marvel movies and he's going to be so busy not doing anything. So it's going to be funny talking to these people and really seeing and hearing what their reactions were. It's a heavy episode. It is very emotional, and being able to create that attachment to that character and then take it away just to potentially create a very dark character growth arc is going it really is. It's hated the way it forced you to play as Abby, but I respect Neil Druckmann and the Naughty Dog team for creating a character that or characters that have such a strong feeling that you can evoke that type of response, because it just says how great the storytelling is. And I hope that you all will continue on this journey. Next week I do think we may see a little bit more of where, or I guess a little bit more a taste, I guess, of what the future will hold for Ellie to really get down that path. And then you may have an idea of where it's going as well. But we'll be back next week. We'll talk about episode 3. I look forward to spending that time with you guys, and we'll just take a quick moment and R.I.P. Joel. It's over for him. We're gonna miss him. We're still gonna see him in flashbacks, but it was tough. And one thing I'll shout out too is, if you are familiar with the Last of Us announcement trailer that started off with Ellie and her bloody hands playing the guitar, that's how tonight's episode ended. Is it was Ellie singing in the background, Ellie from the video game singing from the background the song that she was singing in that trailer. And I remember when the trailer came out and everybody was speculating if Joel would die, because when his character walks up and comes through the doorway, he's clean. He's not covered in mud. He's not covered in blood. He doesn't look worn down, whereas Ellie definitely does. And yeah, if you haven't seen it, you should go look it up. It's The Last of Us 2. I want to say it was the announcement trailer from back whenever the game was. It was the first trailer that came out. It showed Ellie playing the guitar and singing. And yeah, anyway, I'll quit rambling. I appreciate you guys taking the time to spend with me tonight. I hope to see you guys on Friday when we talk about Monster Hunter. Like I said, Gerald will be on that episode with me. And I'll see you next week after episode 3 airs. If you're just now stumbling onto my channel, please give it a like, subscribe, share with your friends. And yeah, you got some catching up to do, because I do have a few other episodes out. Signal is weak, but the stories are strong. Take care.